What's good? It's your brother YK The Truth, and DNA takes another win. And the pretendian community holds another L.
Which is an incredible accomplishment. Can you take any pride in that?
No, I don't like to lose.
Niecy Nash was in a state of shock after DNA test on finding your roots revealed a family secret. Now it says Niecy Nash-Betts has a spirited reaction when she learns the true identity of her paternal grandfather in the latest episodes of PBS Finding Your Roots, January 27th, okay?
You know, this is one of the best things I've ever done in my life. Even with the hard parts, there's an add value to the knowing.
The actor 52 originally turned to the show's host, Henry Louis Gates Jr. You know, the guy that the pretendian community love to hate.
I am the true African prince.
The one that they love to talk about DNA is a hoax, right? Because he said that you can't spit in a tube, right? Now, to learn more about her lineage, she went to Henry Louis Gates Jr. But Nash gets more than she bargained for when she discovers that the man who she thought was her grandfather wasn't actually related to her. How, Sway, if DNA is not real? The compelling saga begins with Gates breaking some awkward news to Nash. Her DNA isn't a match to her paternal grandfather's gene pool. Naturally, the actor is a bit taken aback by the revelation. She said, "I was in a state of shock. I think I say what now? What exactly does that mean?" She tells the host. She's shocked. Like, DNA helps solve things. The DNA test had implications for her entire family, Nash says. This is the man her father and his twin brother was believed were their father too. Now the whole theory was defunct, she says. Now, this is what I want y'all to think about, right? Now it says right here, right? After breaking the news to her own father, Nash tells Gates that the experience was a bit surreal. So basically, she went to her dad and she was like, he said, "What?" And she said, and I said, "Mm-hmm." She says, adding that her father asked if he could call her back in 15 minutes. The father was shocked. So this is my question to you pretendians, right? Y'all love to say, go to grandma. But he really thought, go to your grandfather, go to your grandmother. But he really thought that that man was his father. All right? Now it says, that was the longest 15 minutes in my life. I don't even know what he did in that 15 minutes. But he did call me back and he said, "Well, Pumpkin, the journey continues," she says. As for the identity of her grandfather, Gates and his team turned to a DNA database to some sleuthing and discovered someone who appears to be Nash's second cousin, meaning they share a grandparent. So you can literally use DNA to find out if y'all share the same grandparent. Okay? So for all of these silly abos, wabos, and pretendians, y'all keep asking me, well, can your DNA tell you who your grandparent was? Yes. They just did it. Nash's second cousin, meaning they share a grandparent. Through some trial and error, the team discovered the name of Nash's biological grandfather. His name was Frank Jackson. So many things are going on in my mind now, she says. I wonder if my father ever met him or if he ever knew him in his life, you know? I wonder if he ever saw him before in his life. Wow. Gate offers a theory as to how Jackson met Nash's grandmother, and the extent of their relationship is like a daytime soap opera backed by historical records. Gates points out that when Nash's grandmother was a newlywed Lewis, Jackson lived less than a mile away from her. Oh Lord, have mercy. Nash says, and she takes in the juicy tale. The actor puts two and two together and realizes that her grandmother had to have been unfaithful in her marriage. So Mr. Jackson came around to her house time and time while she was already married, she says. Well, we don't know if he came to the house or she came to the house, Gates replied. But they met up, she says. They met up somewhere, he says. Ooh, dirty pots and pans, Nash says and laughs. Gates can't be sure if Jackson had any other children since he didn't leave behind many records and had a common name. But Nash does learn that he served in World War I and worked in a garage as a scrap metal dealer in St. Louis. While taking it all in, she was struck by how close Jackson lived to her own father while he was growing up. My father's destiny was really less than a mile from where he was born. Do you see my head blowing off? She says. While researching Nash's family tree, Gates also comes across records that show one of her relatives was born into slavery, a discovery that Nash calls heartbreaking. So basically they discovered that the man who they thought was her grandfather wasn't, through DNA. So for all those who say, well, it could only tell you your mother and your father, who your mother and your father is, that is not true. That is not true at all. Love your history. Stop being a culture vulture.
In this video, I would like to show you how you can clean pennies easily. Here you can see a coin which looks old and not nice anymore. Howsoever, you can clean it easily to make it look beautiful again. All you need is one glass which you fill with vinegar. After that, you only need to add 1 or 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and that's it. But before we can start, grab a spoon and stir your mixture. Now, take a tweezer to hold your coin while you dip it in the vinegar salt solution. After you've put the coin in the liquid, you will see a clear difference after a few seconds. Here, I only put half of the coin in the solution, that you can also see the before and after appearance. Look at this huge difference. I show you in front of the camera.
Most people, when we say Afro-American, they think only of the Negroes in the United States. But they don't realize that 2/3 of Brazil consists of people of African blood, which means they're also Afro-American because Brazil is in South America. Most people, when we say Afro-American, they think only of the Negroes in the United States. But they don't realize that 2/3 of Brazil consists of people of African blood, which means they're also Afro-American because Brazil is in South America. And in all of these, many of these countries in South America and Central America, and even in Canada, they are heavily populated with people whose ancestors came from Africa. So when you total up the number of Afro-Americans, real Afro-Americans, in the Western Hemisphere, there are perhaps 100 million. And if these people ever unite among themselves, not only is it necessary for the Afro-Americans in the United States to be organized, but it's also necessary for the Afro-Americans in the Caribbean, or the Afro-Cubans, the Afro-Brazilians. It's necessary for all of them to be organized. And then once they are organized in each place, we have to organize among ourselves so that the Afro-American in the United States will be working in conjunction in a coordinated program with those who are in Cuba and those in Brazil and those in Venezuela and those throughout the Caribbean and Haiti and in the West Indian Islands. And in this way, we actually get strength. And it's not an accident that there's no organization existing in the Western Hemisphere that's designed toward that end. It would be it would be a direct threat to imperialism as it really exists, and to colonialism as it exists in the West. And one of the things that's going to help to bring this about is the independence of Africa. One of the only reasons that we in the West have never organized, we have hated our image and our African image. And because Africa has been in the hands of people who have created an image of Africa that's negative and hateful. And it has been hateful to us. We haven't wanted to identify with it. But now that Africa is getting independent and in a position to create its own image, and it's a positive image, those of us in the West look at the African image and see how positive it is. We begin to identify with it. We become proud of Africa, and we become proud of our African blood, our African heritage. And this is what is beginning to make the Africans in the Western Hemisphere today develop more race pride. And as this race pride develops, then it has a tendency to make us want to unite together and work together. And your Western imperialists and colonialists consider this to be a grave threat. More threat than communism or Marxism or socialism or anything else. Africanism is what
the Native Americans are the black people.
Y'all gotta stop listening to anybody with a microphone in the YouTube channel. Please, please. I have yet to understand what the goal of this theory is, but y'all have to stop. I mean, it makes no sense, like at all. You're telling me that the entire world, including the continent of Africa, where multiple countries have doors of no returns or points of no returns, and they have museums that have plenty of information on the transatlantic slave trade, all of them, everybody, is in on a ploy to convince Black Americans that they're from Africa? That makes sense to you? I mean, you don't even investigate your own sources that you use in your video. It's baffling. There are databases, first-hand accounts, museums dedicated to this stuff. Listen to historians and archaeologists, not some YouTuber.
As Pan-Africanism is becoming a thing of the past. As you see, a lot of people that were under the Pan-African thought form is switching over to an Aboriginal or an American Indian standpoint, realizing that they have ties to America and other places, and that Africa may not be the start of life.
Yo, this is for all the Wabos out there, because that's fucked up, man. You have tribes that you can be proud of. Why the fuck are you trying to fucking appropriate and steal our people's shit? This is somebody in my community. Anyway, this is her, like, this year, right? And she just got a picture taken by an old silver photographer person. Check it out. This is a picture that was taken today, with all the Wabo shit, with people saying that, we look darker than that, blah, 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 blah. This is literally that same old style photography. This was done today. Look. And her dress, by the way, or her regalia, it's turquoise, it's not white. Like, all the colors get all messed up. Like, she's not, I mean, you saw the first picture, come on. Like, we are who we are. Don't try and replace us. Be our allies like we're your allies.
Stop being a pretendian. Stop being a silly abo. We are African people. We come from African people. All right? And for those who say, yeah, we mixed and all of that, would you have ever been mixed, right? Would your ancestors have ever been mixed if nobody fucked with them on the continents of Africa? By force. I'm not saying that if, they met up and they intermingled and all of that, but a lot of this stuff was done by force. Do you follow me? A lot of the Indians own African slaves. I know y'all want to deny this history. I know this history hurts. DNA is real. Take a DNA test. It's your brother, YK The Truth, and I'm out. Peace.
Enslaved Africans.
Enslaved Africans.
Because they was not, that did not mean that they were slaves in Africa. They was enslaved. Some of the people that was kidnapped and stole and sold into slavery was prince and princess, kings and queens, doctors, scientists, educators, and forced to become slaves. So each one of you are holding cotton, and the very shirt that you hold, the very shirt that you are wearing right now is made of cotton. But your ancestors could not even wear that. And when they picked the cotton and took it to the gin, it was baled up like this. But actually it was much larger than this. This is just a replica, meaning just something that give you a general idea of what it looked like. And there was a lot of sweat and blood and pain that went into picking this cotton. Sometimes they would pick the cotton and their fingers would be bleeding. And some would die in the cotton fields. And some cried every day, wanting to go home, wishing that they can see their children again, their families. And when we celebrate July the 4th, 1776 should be a mourning day for you. It should be a day that you identify a new independence, knowing your history, knowing what to celebrate and what not to celebrate, learning about your ancestors who worked in those cotton fields, who worked cutting down tobacco and chopping sugarcane. And there's so much more that I can tell you. Joel, you have a question or a comment?
Question.
What's the question?
When this was packed like this, did the slave do it or the master?
No, the masters didn't do anything. Your enslaved ancestors did everything. They sold it to the Clarksdale, the Clarksdale Cotton Exchange was just one. Joel, put your hand over your mouth, please. Pass this down. The Cotton Exchange was known as the Wall Street, where they would sell the cotton all over the world, and your ancestors did not get one dime. And so today when I see families and they celebrate the 4th of July, are you kidding me? Do you not know the truth? You're not going to learn it in the history books at school. And you may not even learn it in college, and most of the time you will not. And the universities. If you pass this lie down to your children, you will forever hold them into a bondage. It must be broken. The chains of ignorance must be broken. You cannot go to the store, to the department stores, and buy new outfits to celebrate your enslavement. You're celebrating fireworks going off. We're celebrating 4th of July. We have fireworks going off, and you are celebrating your ancestors being a slave. Pass the book down. Joel, you have a lot of questions. I like that. Or comments.
I don't know if you said this, but if you said it, I didn't hear it clearly, but what is that called?
A bale of cotton. Let's pick up the shackles. They look heavy. Can you imagine wearing those all day and all night and being sold? But if you take the shackles off physically, but your mind still have shackles.
Because it